Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a giant or a mini avatar. The same process applies for either or. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it on a bento skeleton, which is the most difficult form of giant or mini avatar to make. And you could do it with separate meshes if you wanted to. But I'm going to do it with one mesh, and I'm just going to do it with a single mesh. Okay, so I'm going to hide all these. Okay, click there, and I am going to show the auto size. Now this mesh is actually not rigged, so I'm going to delete the history. Of it so that there's no more wrap on it. So it's an unrigged mesh. Now I need to rig it so that I can change the scale. So I'm going to select the M pelvis, or I could go Maya star. Where is it? I hate it. There it is. All bone select. Okay, shift select. And I'm going to smooth bind skin. Bind skin. Okay, so now it's rigged. I did already saved the weights from an earlier test where I imported. I copied the weights over from the bento head and the upper body and the lower body. So I'm going to import those weights. I'm going to pause it while I import the weights. Okay. Well, I decided I should go over this. So, say you already have your mesh and you want to make it bigger or smaller, and it's best to do that after you've rigged it. So you're going to want to export out your weights. I suggest getting Dora. You can look in my other videos. I have a video about Dora, how to use it. It's slower for exporting and importing, but it's going to give you perfect export weights and perfect import weights every time. Even though it's slower, it's better. So I've already exported out those weights, and so now I'm going to import them. So I'm going to import. There's the whole body, and it's going to vertex order because I've already rigged this mesh before, so I know it's the same vertex order. And I'm going to pause it because it takes longer to import than to export. Well, it takes longer to import than to export, but still takes a minute, so I'm going to pause the video. Okay, finished importing, and I've already clicked on the thing. It said it's imported so many thousands of vertices, and you just click OK. So I've imported the weights, and as you can see, it's all imported. Okay. And so next what you want to do is we're going to scale the skeleton up bigger or smaller. So it's good to just go to for the meter centimeter and click it to meter scale. Okay. Because so what that does is it creates a locator and it scales it up to 100 times bigger, making it meter size of it is in meters. Okay, I'm also going to create just a basic cube. So I'm going to polygons. I'm making sure interactive creation is off, and I'm going to make sure this is all set to 1, 1, and 1. That's good. And I just say create. Now what that created a cube that is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. And now I'm going to move the pivot point down to the bottom, and then I'm going to snap it to the grid so that the bottom is on the grid. Now let me move this to the side, and I'm going to change the scale to 64, so that will tell us that it's 64 meters tall, because you want something to measure by. That's the maximum height that the avatar can be, 64 meters tall. So if I come back here, see the the M. pelvis bone has been parented. Now, if you notice on the M. pelvis, I click on the M. pelvis bone, this is the regular default bone location. Okay, it's the regular default bone location. And we don't want that because we want custom bone locations. So it's acting, because we parented, it's acting as if this bone here is really way down here when it was small. So we need this to be a bigger number. So we need to freeze transformation of the skeleton. But let's first scale the avatar down. So what you do is you just click on the locator and you go into scale mode, and we can just middle mouse button, bring it down. Okay, and I could come into here and make sure that that it looks like it's scaled below 64 meters. Okay, so that's just below 64 meters because there's that one there. So this is a little bit below 64 meters, so it's close. You could get super close if you want to, but for demonstration purposes, doesn't matter. Okay, so this is going to be a giant avatar. Oh, I gotta get back into here. There we go. Okay. So that's why I wanted the stick, to be able to eyeball it next to it. So, and you could probably do the calculations and figure out what the scale would have to be in order to get it to 64 meters perfectly. But that's not important here. So what we want to do next is you select the mesh and we want to duplicate it. So Control D on the keyboard, and see, it duplicated it. Okay, you want to do that because we want this to have a scale of 1, 1, and 1. And we can delete the original. There's the original. Okay, so that's no longer there. And in order to rig it, we need to freeze transformation on the skeleton. Can't have any incoming connections. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff in MayaStar that has incoming connections. So anything that's rigged to the skeleton has to go. So those are all the originals. Here's all the fitted mesh and all the other heads and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want any mesh in there at all. The cube is fine because it's not rigged to the thing. Also, you want to get rid of the avatar appearance editor controls because that's also connected to the skeleton. And we'll get rid of control base we'll just get rid of that. Okay. And we'll get rid of this animated avatar. And then we also want to come in here, turn off DAGs only, because we want to get rid of appearance editor, spin. These are all animations. These are the poses. Got to get rid of all those, all these animated curves. You want to get rid of all these, all this, and even here, this blend weights. Yeah, you want to get rid of these. Avatar editor spin. These are all animations. Sit, all that kind of stuff. Typing, and I'd even get rid of the bind pose one. So get rid of all of that. Just hit delete. Okay. Because those were all connected to the skeleton. And if anything's connected to the skeleton, you can't freeze transformation. So you see it like says freeze. It says 3333. I'm just selecting the avatar skeleton there, and just the locator. And now I'm going to go modify freeze transformations, and I have joint orientation turned off, but all the other threes are on there, and I say freeze transformation. And now, see, when we clicked on M pelvis, look at the translate. See, translate is now 36 instead of the 1.067, something like that. And it's also, you want to take the M pelvis, click on the M pelvis, hold down the middle mouse button and drag it to unparent it. See, now it's unparent. You don't want to leave that in there. Okay, and now what we can do is we can select the M pelvis, or we can go MayaStar, all bones select, And then we could shift select the mesh, or I could have clicked that, select hierarchy, and control click on the avatar mesh. Then we're going to smooth bind skin. Smooth bind skin, and then we're going to import the weights again. Okay, so we're going to import the weights, and it takes a minute, so I'm going to pause the video. Okay, it imported. So I click OK, and I go back to object mode. Okay, a couple things to note. If you select the mesh, and I go to Maya Star for earlier versions of Maya skin cluster bone names, you will see that this list of bones is what the mesh is rigged to. Although not all these bones actually have weights on them. But that's all 159 bones. Okay? I think it's 159, right? 159 bones. Select hierarchy. Yep, 159 bones. Yep, there's 159 bones total. But the maximum number of bones your mesh can have in the skin cluster is 110. Or the maximum number of bones, that you can have rigged to is 110 as well. Per mesh. You can have more than one mesh in a DAE, and those meshes can have, as long as each mesh has less than 110 or less bones that it's rigged to, that'll be okay. But this is a single mesh, and so 159 bones is way too much. It's not going to go through. So, let me clear the history there. So I'm going to select the mesh and go Maya Star, remove unused influences, and it got rid of 68 bones. Okay, so now we're well below 110 bones. So if we go to Maya Star for earlier versions of Maya, skin cluster bone names, you can see here's the list. And while it looks pretty big, you can tell it's much shorter. It's not near 110 bones. Now this is something else that's very, very, very important. Okay, since we're making a giant or a mini avatar, you're going to be using custom bone locations. And for some reason, Linden Lab, okay, see this M neck here? This mesh is not rigged to the M neck. I'm not sorry, not M, I'm sorry, M head, sorry. M head. This mesh is not, doesn't have any weight rigged. In here, there's no weight on the M head because we removed unused influences, remember? So any bone that was in the skin cluster that didn't have any weight got removed. But even if we were to add this M head back to the skin cluster, so you select the bone that you want to add to the skin cluster, shift select the mesh, go Maya Star, add bone to skin cluster. If this locked weights was set at 0, it would show up in the skin cluster, but the uploader, for some reason, if there's no weight on a bone that's using a custom bone position, it will not record the custom bone position. So your mesh will be messed up once you wear it. So what you have to do, there's two different ways. You can either add, we're going to add the bone to the skin cluster. There's two ways to do it. You can either add 0.001 locked weights, adding the M head, which means every vertice in the mesh will be have 0.001 added to the skin cluster, and that's what we're going to do here. Because and just click add, and it added it. Okay. So let me get my mesh here. Move this out of the way. Okay, we'll move this out of the way too. Okay, So this max skin weights, like I said, look, if you haven't got this tool, I have that video that I'm pretty sure I have a video about max skin weights and Dora. So go back, watch those videos, get these tools. Okay. If I go to Vertex and I select a vertice, right? You can see there's the M head. Even this shoulder, there's the M head again. See, 0.001. It's a very, very small amount. You could probably just leave it there if you really wanted to. Or what I would do is I would select a vertice on the head, go to Edit, Invert Selection, right? Then come with the max skin weights, select the head bone, and hit 0 up here. That's going to remove that bone from influencing those joints. So as long as one vertice in your mesh has an influence, just a little bit of an influence of the M head, it will have that custom bone position. So here we can see it has just a little tiny bit, and that's not going to make any difference right there. Okay, so now our mesh has, now if we go to object mode, I'm going to clear the history for earlier versions of Maya, skin cluster bone names, and there's the M head right down there. Doesn't matter what these orders are in the list here, but we know it now has weight. See, if the M head bone doesn't have weight to it, it's just going to go to the default location when you wear it in Second Life, which means the head is going to collapse down since this is a custom bone position. It's way up there, way up higher than the neck. So what it would do is, if this bone here doesn't go to its custom bone position, it's going to put itself right where it's supposed to be on the M neck as if it was a small avatar. So it's going to look like it has this little super tiny short neck. It's going to look messed up. Okay, but since it has weight on it, now when we upload it, we export it out and we upload it, even though it's just one vertice with a little tiny bit of influence on it, it's going to know that it has to put this neck bone, or head bone, M head bone, to the proper position. Okay, so that's really important. And so now we're ready to export out. Okay, oh, the other way you can do it. Okay, so, okay, hold on. Okay, the other way of doing it is to, well, older versions of Maya, you switch to animation, you go to skeleton. No, you go to skin. I'm sorry. You go to skin, paint skin weights tool. Okay, let me close this out. And then you would come down, scroll down. There's the M head bone, and you can see it's locked. So you would unlock it. You could select a vertice in select vertice mode, and then you could put this value to 001 and flood it. That one vertice. It's the same sort of thing. So that's the other way you would add after you added this. After you did the add bone to skin cluster, you would unlock it and add a little bit of influence that way. So that's the other way you do it if you don't have max skin weights tool. You got to add just a little bit of influence. Okay. So now, are we in object mode? Yes. Okay. So now we export. Oh, whoops. I could have gone File, Export Selection, or I could go Maya Star, Export Selection. Either way, they both do exactly the same thing. Okay, I'm going to make this 16. As you can tell, I've done many tests. Okay, let's go over the export settings that I'm using. These are just the include geometry. You can use NURBS. It doesn't matter. Interactive display mesh or NURBS. This doesn't come into play at all. You can have it triangulate if you want. You want to turn on animation temporarily. And then you want to make sure you could turn off blend shapes. You don't need that. Make sure that skins is turned on and deform models is turned on. Bake animations, you want to make sure that's turned off. Make sure camera and lights are turned off. Units, I'm using meters. I don't use automatic. Automatic sometimes can cause Maya to crash on some versions. I always use meters. So I'm using meters. So if you're finding that your avatar is coming in too small after you've scaled it, done everything, it's because you probably need to switch this to meters. Z axis up is always good because that's what Second Life is in. I always turn off show global warming show warning manager and generate logs because it never gives me any information. And here's another place that you can set to triangulate. And then a single matrix is fine. Okay. And okay, and then you want to make sure you come back here and you turn off animations. Okay, and then we'll just export. And I'm going to pause it while it exports and switch over to Second Life. Okay, so here we are in Second Life, and I'm going to upload the mesh model. There's 16. And I'm just going to do this down and dirty. 0 and 0. Whoops, wrong way. It being so big, I probably could have set this to 0 as well. I'm just so used to clothes. That's what a lot of clothing designers use, those settings, which Linden Lab hates. Okay, giant for video. Giant for video. Okay, yeah, as long as you see this is not grayed out, you know you're good to go. You don't have to do this, but I always do anyway, to lowest. You don't have to do that. It's not really necessary. Include skin weights. If that's grayed out, then you know you probably have more than 110 bones in your mesh. Include joint positions. That's a must. If you don't have that, it's not going to be a giant or a mini. And you see the size here. See, it's 63 meters tall, 63.866. So it's pretty close to 64 meters tall. And the offset, can we do? No, see, the maximum offset you can do is 3. And that's not enough for a giant. So this would be a giant that would have to walk, would have to fly or something. Unless maybe you can edit it in the, anyway, in some other form. I'm thinking that whenever you create a mesh, it actually saves a file format on your hard drive. I think it's called SLM, Second Life Mesh, on your hard drive. I don't know if you can go in there and edit the Z offset there or not. I don't know. I've never tried that. Anyway, but yeah, the Z offset isn't going to be enough. It only goes up to 3. Should talk to Linden Lab about that. Say, hey, about 64 meter tall avatars might need to have a higher offset than just 3. Okay. Anyway, so we're going to calculate the weights. And we're going to upload. Okay, and there's the giant for avatar video. I'm going to add. And see, this is what I mean by the Z offset. It's not up high and nearly high enough to be able to have the avatar standing up. But yeah, there's the avatar. We got this giant avatar. And if we fly, get our feet out of the ground. There we are. Now we're this giant 64 meter. Oh, this is the other thing that drives me crazy. So you can't use your mouse to click on the mesh and move your camera around. But anyway, there she is. Super tall, super big. And to make a tiny avatar, you just scale the avatar down. Remember to unparent the M pelvis bone from the locator, you know, after you've done freeze transformation on the locator. Okay, make sure you unparent it. Okay, if you don't, it's going to be messed up. And, you know, so awesome. So that's how you make a giant or a tiny avatar. So awesome. Biggest you can make the avatar is 64 meters. The smallest, I don't know how you can make the smallest 0.01 of a meter tall if you really wanted to. So you can make them super tiny. So it's the same exact process. You just scale it down instead of scaling it up. So awesome. So that's how you do it. And we'll see you in the next video.